Hello, SciFi Addict here. I had a comment come in that my window sizing wasn't consistent. Well, let's just take a look at that here, shall we? So I've loaded up a Klingon frigate that I'm about to start work on. And here's a D7 that I originally made. So let's grab something that's got windows, and let's move it over. And we'll zoom in here on the windows. So here's the frigate in the background, and here's the D7. So this little square here is a window on the D7, and here's the size of the window on the frigate. So as you can see, the windows on the frigate are a little bit smaller, probably about 75 to 8% of what the window size is on the D7. And if we take a look at, let's see, phaser 1, actually those are phaser 2s. Nope, just want the phaser, thank you. There we go. Let's move that over. So as you can see, the sizing of the phasers, I try and keep them the same from ship to ship. I try and keep the windows close to the same. I try and keep weapons like the ADD gun or the disruptors the same. Things like the deflector dishes I will size down because they don't need to deflect as much of a area of space for the ship to travel through because the ship is smaller. And various other components like warp nacelles will be smaller and the impulse deck will be smaller, but the shuttle bays I try and keep the same size, so as the ship gets smaller it appears the shuttle bay is getting bigger but the shuttle bay is remaining the same. Same thing with weapons and other various things. But here's a point I want to make about windows. If you're on a dreadnought, a massive ship, and you have, let's say, crew quarters that are maybe 12 by 12. Well, when you are on a cruiser instead of the dreadnought, your crew quarter may not be 12 by 12, but it may be 10 by 8. And when you go down to a light cruiser, it may be 8 by 8. Or on a frigate, it might be 6 by 6. But it's still going to be the same height. There will be fewer number of decks on the ship, but the height of the decks are going to be mostly the same. Now you might have a 12-foot ceiling on a dreadnought, you might have an 11-foot ceiling on a cruiser, and you may have a 10-foot ceiling on a light cruiser, and you may have maybe a 9-foot ceiling on a frigate, but you might not. Who knows? But a window that is 75% of a 12-foot ceiling height on a dreadnought. If you keep it at 75% on a 10-foot or an 8-foot ceiling height. It'll maintain proportion, but you don't need to do that, because on a small ship like a frigate, your window, if you have one, might be the size of your head. But on a cruiser, it may be the size of both your arms outstretched, and maybe half the height of your body. So there really doesn't need to be consistency for the windows, because the windows can change size. Hell, even on the same ship, the window sizes may vary. The officer quarters may have very large windows, where the midshipman quarters may have 50% of that size because they have smaller quarters, or they may double bunk them, etc. And then when you get down to your general enlisted, they may have quarters that don't even have windows at all, or they may just simply have something the size of a porthole. So even on the same ship, your window sizes don't have to be consistent. And in fact, a lot of people say that the models that we're making shouldn't even have windows, other than perhaps maybe a common crew area like the cafeteria where everybody gathers, or the galley where everybody gathers to eat, or maybe one recreation room like something like 10 Forward on the TNG Enterprise. But again, as I said, I try and keep some windows consistent. I try and keep some things consistent in size, especially the weapons. Now, I also have had a comment that why am I using the same phasers from race to race to race? Well, simply put, I'm a bit lazy in that regard. I could spend some extra time and do that, and maybe eventually I can go back and do that, but for now I'm just keeping one phaser and just using it across all my ships. But anyway, hey, these are my models and I can do what I want. That's it for this video. Have fun.